reading podcast where myself, my name's Connor, and my two wonderful, fabulous, amazing, incredible, stupendous, kind, caring, grateful, pretty cool co-hosts / perpetual guests.
Hey.
Okay.
Let's not. That's a step too far.
All right.
That's
Just
a step
having
too
a little
far.
fun here.
Perpetual
that's Connor.
guests.
That is Connor. We're doing a little bit of a bit here. That's just how it goes here at Chapter Chumps. And Josh, would you like to say hey?
Hey.
There we go. That's we usually, I would say, we read 5 chapters every week of whatever book we're reading, but this is the first time we've actually changed that. We are starting to read The Hobbit, and the plan is to continue on into The Lord of the Rings. And as the page lengths of the chapters are a little different than some of the books we've been reading previously, we've decided to so far break it into 2 chapters. So today we're going to be discussing the first 2 chapters of The Hobbit. Before we get to all that...
By JRR Tolkien.
Who? Who wrote The Hobbit? What's that guy's name?
JRR Tolkien.
Jeremy Tolkien? Who?
It seems like you're not doing your research, Mr. Host.
No, I don't know shit. Yeah.
Joe Rogan?
So anyways, I don't know. This Tolkien guy sounds pretty cool.
Joe Rogan.
I'll be excited to talk about this book later.
And I mean, also, this is essentially the first episode of the podcast. Essentially,
It is. It's essentially the first
Never
episode.
done this before.
So I think it might behoove us to give a little bit of a rundown on what we're going to do around here.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's a book club podcast.
Right.
Obviously, we're chumps.
Yes. Yeah. I think those 2 things are pretty clear.
Yeah,
Wait,
clear
I thought
as
we were the
day.
chapters.
Sorry.
We're going to be reading books, and the first one that we're going to be reading together is The Hobbit, but there will be more after that.
Mm-hmm. The Hobbit by Gregory Tolkien.
JRR Martin.
There we go. That's a good one. That's going to make the nerds a little ornery.
Or
You're going to orn up the nerds.
It's going to make fans of both franchises cream their little pants.
Yeah.
They're going to cream their little nerd pants.
That's what's going to happen. I mean, ornery comes from hornery, obviously.
True.
It's just you just take off the H. So
yeah, it's
that's kind of what I was getting at.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, where it comes from is you're so horny, and then you're so horny you get a little bit angry.
Right.
You're
Yeah.
that horny. Yeah.
I think that's it. Yes. Or you're so angry it just makes you horny. Anyways, like you can't get any angrier, and like you just have to. It gets channeled into like horniness.
Yeah, it can go either way.
That's what we were talking about, like other stuff we read through all of Dune. That's part of what Dune was about. I feel like too. That was a big part of Dune.
For sure.
The horniness, that is.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm excited. We kind of found out how horny Frank Herbert is, the author of Dune.
Yeah.
We found out how horny Douglas Adams is, the author of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
I'm excited to see how horny this guy is.
Yeah. No.
What's his name again? Tollbooth.
John. Yeah.
John Tollbooth.
Toll something. I don't know. So it's a little unknown gem. Just a little undiscovered gem. A little rock that we turned over in the never-ending field of endless books, But like Connor's saying, yeah, this is pretty much it. We read a book, we talk about it, and we shoot the shit. So if you like that, then keep going. And if you don't, then I don't know.
listen.
Write us a bad review.
Listen to us.
It's a good one. We're the number one podcast to hate listen to about books for chumps.
But we might just make you ornery.
Oh God. Yeah, I'm almost glad, or I'm almost sad. I don't know. Glad and sad rhyme. It's like ornery and hornery. I can't. I'm almost sad that I don't have a can to crack, because it's also kind of partly a podcast tradition to crack open a can. But I'm drinking some straight whiskey here right now. So
I'm drinking the bottle version of Coca-Cola Zero, so I have nothing to crack either.
Nice.
I just have my bottle of water as usual.
It's kind of like, this is a new show. We've been on other podcasts together before. One was called Dune Dudes. That's the two of us read Dune together. The other one was called Chapter Chumps. Same name, different podcast, where we read Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Now we're on a new podcast together called Chapter Chumps. So we can make new traditions too.
New.
It's sort of like when people do like a reboot or a revival of an old franchise or property, and they just use the same name, and then you have to refer to it as the same name but with the date that it launched.
Yeah.
So this is Chapter Chumps 2023.
Or how about we streamline it to Chapter Chumps 2000? I think that's snappier.
It's snappier, but
it's snappier, but it's much more wrong.
It doesn't matter.
It's fun though. I do kind of like it.
It's fun.
Man, would have been so cool to like name things in the year 2000. People just had a field day,
They did, yeah.
Anything
oh my God.
2000, like.
I actually, you know what? This kind of leads me into what I want to talk about on our next segment, because we're doing segments now, right?
Let's start the segment. Our opening segment here. This is our pros and cons segment. Pros. I'm gonna have to explain. This is gonna go a little bit over the heads of some of our listeners, so I'm gonna break this down for you there.
A lot of lore.
Ornery,
a lot of lore.
Ornery little, you listeners. Wherever you are. Pros and cons, because pros, like prose, like that's like we're reading, like prose, like the actual like reading, the writing of something. Wow, pros. And then cons, well, my name's Connor.
My name is also Connor.
This guy, his name's Connor.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then you're thinking like, okay, well, what about this third guy? That doesn't. Josh?
He ain't a Connor.
Hi.
There's nothing there. But his last name.
He's none of your business.
I'm not. I'm not prepared. I'm not going to dox you. I'm not going to dox you, Josh.
No, it's O'Connor.
Self-doxing.
Oh.
Classy.
Oh, yeah. Connor.
It's okay to self-dox.
It is.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the deal. So we're going to talk about one positive thing, that's the pro, one negative thing, that's the con. That's the plan. Connor, it sounds like you want to start us off here.
Yeah, I why not? So yeah, we'll start off with the pro, which in this case is the positive. Which these days there's there's a lot of cons, but it's good to savor the pros.
Absolutely.
And the one pro actually that I our conversation here just made me think of is today I started a new job. And
congrats.
Yeah, thank you. I love being congratulated on these shitty jobs. Sorry, I do appreciate that, Josh. In the bathroom in this office building, in the stall, there's 3 stalls. In the middle stall, there's like a big shit that was on just the floor, like underneath the toilet. It was smelling.
Oh.
It was really gross, and I just like.
Wait, did you say this is the pro portion of your discussion?
This is that's just an unrelated. Well, it's not what I'm going for.
Okay,
just a detail I wanted to throw in. A detail I wanted to throw
that was fun. Thanks.
The toilet paper dispenser, where they put the toilet paper roll in there. I took a picture of it because I loved the name. It's called the Rollmaster 3000. Let me show you the picture. You can see that.
Oh yeah,
I thought it was really.
They named it way too early. They're almost 1,000 years too early for that.
Well, it's in vogue for for a while. That adds a lot of time to its shelf life. So I was really pleased with that.
I suppose.
Yeah, I just I love it. Love
pretty
it.
funny.
Love adding a 2,000 or 3,000 after some kind of dumb name. Just makes everything better.
It's weird because I feel like other instances of thousands don't always work. Like if it was Rollmaster 4000s, it just seems like it doesn't work.
Yeah,
the same way.
Yeah, it can be too much.
Because it's like 2000. Okay, we just passed it. Like that had its time, and now it's like you kind of naturally look ahead to 3000. But I mean, 4,000, 5,000, and so on. I mean, what's a Rollmaster 6,000? Come on.
It depends, if there's something set in the far future, you could maybe get away with 5,000, 4,000 maybe, but 2,000, 3,000, that's the sweet spot for that naming convention. And then the con is a I don't know, a big one or an annoying one, and that's kind of why I was late today for record, which I wasn't really late today. It was like between 7:15 and 7:30.
Is that what I said?
Yeah. Last night, yeah. We talked. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was right here. I was here pretty much 7:30 on the dot.
Okay.
But anyways, last night we had a band meeting. Chapter Chumps is the band I'm referring to.
Yeah. Right.
About the future of the podcast, the new podcast we're just starting today. And after we hung up, I started to feel kind of sick. I was getting like chills and feeling really yucky and stuff. And so I started reading The Hobbit. I got 15 pages in, and I was just like, I feel like my tummy hurt really bad. So, my beautiful girlfriend made me some tea, peppermint tea, and gave me a hot water bottle, and
nice.
Just kind of laying on the couch like a frightened little thing,
Yeah. I mean, it seems like you're a lot better now, though.
Yeah. Right now, I feel okay. But I woke up this morning again feeling like just total fucking dog shit, just really fucking terrible. And I don't know. I never know anymore what is real and what's fake. I don't know when I'm actually feeling sick or when I'm just like paranoid about it. I don't. I definitely have a like psychosomatic response to illnesses. I have all like forever, but with post-COVID, it's like way worse.
That boy needs therapy.
Yeah, he does. And so yeah, I mean, I just kind of got on with the day, and I took Excedrin, and it wasn't, I tested myself for COVID. I got a negative result. I didn't feel like, too sick to like not go to work, so I went to work. First day of a new job, And
yeah, I mean, you want to make a good impression for the 2 weeks you're going to be there for.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I don't know about 2 weeks yet, but we'll see.
Oh yeah, I don't want to put any words in your mouth.
Yeah, and so I got back home. I got out of work at like 4:30. Got back home at like 5, and pretty much spent the entire time just reading the rest of the chapters. And so I had to finish that up, and it was already time to record. And then I was like, oh fuck, there's other podcast things I wanted to get done. For this new podcast we're starting.
Right, Chapter Chumps 2000.
Some production work I had to get done for Chapter Chumps 2000, but I made it. I made it just under the.
Sounds like you got it all figured out in the end, man. I mean, you turned this con into a pro, if you ask me. So.
Thanks, appreciate that.
Very nice. Josh, do you want to go next or me?
I can go next if you like.
All right, go for it.
So I think I'll start with the con, since I like to end on better news.
So cons and pros.
And
heroes and cons. Sorry, go on.
I think the big con is that vacation's over. I had to start work again today. It's been a very busy holiday season for me, and I wish I had more time to relax. But it's not that much of a con, but I think I'm in a good spot right now. So all I can really say is that crap, I have to go back to work. As for pros, I guess work's been pretty easy so far. Nobody's really gotten back into. It's literally the first day back, so like half my team was missing, like still on vacation, or just there were no meetings or anything like that today. So I think the only time I actually spoke to somebody about something work related was my boss making sure I got a bonus like 2 months ago that I went through.
A boner? Sorry?
So,
a boner? Did you say boner?
Bonus.
Oh.
You weren't ornery at work, were you?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes a boner can happen if you get too ornery.
But we're just gonna move on.
We're just gonna move on.
It's fine. It's fine. We're gonna move on. It's fine. It's fine. We're gonna move on.
Yeah, no, it's pretty subdued the last couple days, especially since you guys left for New Year's. So,
which was a ton of fun.
Oh yeah,
huge pro.
let's make that the real pros. We all got together for New Year's. That was a ton of fun.
We had an awesome New Year's Eve together. You know, the three chumps and some family and friends and other loved ones and yeah, it was an awesome way to ring in the new year.
Absolutely,
totally. Yeah, it was really cool that we got to make that happen in the end.
And now I have a full leftover pizza that I need to eat before it goes bad.
I assumed you would have taken care of that by now.
I've gotten through a third of it.
Oh.
But instead of doing pizza 3 nights in a row, I decided to do quesadillas Sunday night, and then tonight I had a salad. So, because the salad's going to go bad before the pizza does.
Fair enough. It was good pizza.
It was.
It was good pizza.
I don't think I reheated it quite right last night, so I'll try again for the next third.
The trick is you got to put some oil on the crust or else it gets too hard, and then you put it in the oven at a low temperature for a little bit longer than you would otherwise, like 225 for like 12 or 15 minutes or 10, 12 minutes.
Like vegetable oil or like motor oil?
That's what I just put extra virgin olive oil or whatever I got on, and I just drizzle a little bit on the crust because otherwise I feel like the crust gets way too hard. Like you need some kind of moisture on it.
Yeah, that was kind of what I was having trouble with. But I usually reheat pizza in a toaster oven. So
yeah,
and I knew to turn the heat down. It's like 10 minutes, just kind of reheat it. But I'll have to try the olive oil thing next time.
I'll give it a shot. Tell me what you think.
We'll see. I have also to remember to try to use the olive oil next time, which I can't guarantee. So what about you?
All right. So I think my con is probably the same as yours, Josh.
All right,
Today was also my first day. Also my first day.
This is the segment. Cons and pros.
No, it's pros and cons because it just works better that way. But I like what Josh had going on there, so I figured I'd.
Not really pros and cons anymore, if you know what I mean.
I like to end on a positive.
Cons and
Next
okay,
time,
we gotta change the name. We gotta change the name.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
It just sounds like a nitpick from him.
Do you want me to? Do you want me to do it?
No. Right. We're not.
Is your girlfriend gonna let you
Save
do
that
it?
for later.
Only if we have a nitpick will be nitpick.
All right. Okay.
Alert. But yeah, today was my first day back after winter break, which is like fine. Like Josh was saying, like my day wasn't that hard. I had a pretty easy day back. But it's just tough. It's just tough, and it makes me think like, the work week just doesn't have to be the way that it is. It's like we could all take a leaf from Sweden's playbook or something and do a 4-day work week, like minimum. I mean, like, there's more you could do, but I mean, like, Jesus, it's like it doesn't have to be this way. But anyways, my pro is that I finally got to start reading The Hobbit, and I'm really excited to talk about it with you guys as a group. But But like, I wanted to read The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings for a long time, but also I have a really hard time self-motivating, especially when it comes to reading, which is also why, partly why this podcast came about anyways, because Dune Dudes was sort of the inception point of that, like trying to figure out like how to get myself to read, and then this comes from that. So it's all connected, domino effecty.
Well, this comes from Chapter Chumps.
Yeah, right.
This
yes.
podcast, yeah, the original was Chapter Chumps. No, this is Chapter
right.
Chumps, just different podcast.
I just mean like Dune Dudes is kind of the precursor.
Yeah, Chapter Chumps. Chapter Chumps comes from Dune Dudes. Chapter Chumps comes from Chapter Chumps.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Chapter Chumps 2000.
Thanks for clearing that up.
Yeah.
So
you've been talking about like doing the Lord of the Rings since like the second or third Dune book, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, I got my copy of The Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit, the ones that, we'll be reading, or that I am reading in the case of The Hobbit. I asked for those for Christmas last year, so I've had them for a year. And
wow.
Just, haven't read them, which I knew at that point, I knew I wasn't planning on reading them on my own. I was planning on reading them for the podcast.
Right.
But it's just funny that we pretty much just passed that point. I've had them for just over a year now. This is January 3rd, also a very special date we're going to be mentioning.
Connor, I was going to ask you, like, why today? Why do we start reading The Hobbit on January 3rd of all days? What makes it so special?
That is a really great question, Connor.
Thank you.
This is Jason Andrew Relva Tolkien's 131st birthday. So yeah, it's funny that this was just a coincidence, because actually when we were talking about relaunching the Chapter Chumps podcast, we just said that we would talk on January 3rd because we have been used to talking on Tuesdays. That's the day that we've had free. And we wanted to do it after all the holiday festivities died down. And so it's like, okay, well then our first opportunity is the 3rd. And on the dust jacket of my copy of The Hobbit, which actually the dust jacket isn't next to me, but it has it lists his birthday on the back. He was born on January 3rd, 1892, which is nuts. It's one of those things like, it's one of those things like history has a big impact. Like the history of the time has a big impact on what Tolkien was writing about, from what I understand. But also, like, it's just one of those things, like, I don't know, you ever sit back and think about, like, how different a life, like, even just your grandparents lived? Like, they might have been fucking going to the town square getting water from a well. Like, literally. I'm not even making a joke. Like, plenty of people's grandparents did that shit. Like, that's just what they fucking did to get water. Like,
my grandmother grew up in a time before light bulbs were really, like prolific,
right?
And they weren't. Her family wasn't that well off, so like their Christmas tree was like little paper things from the Macy's that they were getting rid of Christmas Eve. That looked like a tree when you unfold it. Yeah,
it's bonkers. You talk to any old person, and they're gonna blow your mind.
My nana has a lot of great stories from back then.
I mean, she grew up in Ireland during the Troubles. There's some real hardships there.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, I guess, like, obviously Tolkien's dead, so it's not like, oh, wow, he's got some crazy stories. But I mean, like, just, like, how different of a world these books were written in. But, like, also, jumping in, and I think we're probably going to be talking about a lot of different things. But I was kind of worried that these books would actually, like, read old. Like, they would feel, like, and I think there are some parts where it's like, you can kind of tell, like, this is an older book for sure. But it's a lot snappier than I was expecting, to be honest, from these first 2 chapters, which I'll be interested to talk to you about. But yeah, I mean, it's really cool that we get to launch in honor of JRR Tolkien's 131st birthday. Happy birthday, buddy.
Junior Rogaine Tall Kid.
And yes, Josh.
I was going to ask before we get started. You mentioned that you got the books last year, but have you ever actually read any of The Hobbit before?
No.
You ever Hobbit, bro?
I have never made any singular attempt ever in my life to ever read The Hobbit or The Lord of the Rings. I don't think I've read one word.
Okay. Well, you've read the titles at some point, I imagine.
Nope.
Okay. But you have, I think we've all discussed this earlier, but we all have seen the movies.
I have. I don't know if Connor.
Yes.
I mean, I know I have seen all of the Hobbit movies, which is funny. I've only seen bits and pieces of Lord of the Rings.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's funny. That's great, though. Actually, that's really exciting.
Yep. And you haven't read the book either,
Oh no,
right?
No,
Okay.
and I have zero memory of either. So
Okay, so like Chapter Chumps, I have read the book before, but it's been years and years. When we did Hitchhiker, so I was in the same kind of boat. But I read this version. I got this version of The Hobbit when I was a child. I don't remember how old. I just know my aunt gave it to me. And then they started making the movies, and I decided to read the whole book before the first. I went to go see the first movie, not realizing at the time that it would only get to be like a third of the way through the book. So I read this book when the movies first came out, when the Hobbit movies first came out, and I saw Lord of the Rings, those movies back in high school, and I think the last time I saw them was my freshman year of college. But I haven't read any of the Lord of the Rings books. I tried to read them a couple years ago, like 2 years ago, but could not get through like the first few chapters of Fellowship because I didn't have the motivation back then. So
yeah, that's really interesting to hear.
Just some context for our listener.
No, I mean the context is important because like Josh has seen the Hobbit movies and read all of the Hobbit, though it was some time ago. Connor has seen the Hobbit movies, never read the book, but doesn't remember the movies or any fucking shit anyways. And I've only seen the first Hobbit movie and then have never read the books. But I've seen the Lord of the Rings movies a lot, and I've actually watched all 3 extended edition versions back in October. So just, 3 months ago.
Okay.
If that. So I feel pretty familiar with the Lord of the Rings story itself, but like that's also what's interesting about it because I always hear from book readers, particularly one of my other best friends, Adam. He has always been a huge reader in general, but has always loved Lord of the Rings. And he's always told me like, people always say that they're like perfect adaptions but what about this and what about that? And I'm excited to really dig into it for myself. And this is kind of the first step on that journey that we're all going on together. So
cool.
That'll be really cool to talk about. To your point, Josh, I think there's just one more thing that I want to mention that you made me think about, but like it goes without saying, but like the Lord of the Rings is one of the most popular stories ever written. And so like I think we're all going to have things that we might know about it or think we know about it or things that might like inform our reading of the text. But I feel like especially given
all
we're
I
all
know,
kind
sorry
of
for interrupting. All I know is that the dragon falls in love with the donkey at the end.
Nope, that's Shrek.
I don't know if Josh is right on that one.
Okay. Well, I mean, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll have to read and find out.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
But I feel like even in times where I don't know, I guess we might know stuff. I think we should just limit our discussions to what we're discussing from what we've read that week. So I want to avoid conversations about things that we know about, like from the Lord of the Rings and so on, as much as possible. Especially considering I think Connor probably doesn't know that much about it, and it's really cool to have someone who I think will be able to kind of see some of their like genuine, fresh reactions to these things that I think you and I might be a little more familiar with, Josh.
Okay.
So I just wanted to throw that out there. I hope we're in agreement, because I would like to kind of go through this story as we read it as best we can, despite how immense and well known it is.
I agree. That sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Yeah. Same.
All right. Well, then
Should we
I
get
guess it's time to jump in. Are you
Time
ready?
for the theme song.
You didn't do that already?
Oh no, we do like a sing along for every for every
No, we
book
don't.
we do. We
I don't know
do a
where you're
unique-
getting this from. We never do this.
It's a new segment on
We
the new show
did.
Chapter
It
Chumps.
sounds like we're kind of. I mean, this is Chapter Chumps 2000. I mean, you're right about what we've done in the past,
Yeah.
but this is Chapter Chumps 2000, Connor. So
Yeah. I mean, I'm saying it's going to be a new segment for Chapter Chumps 2000.
Maybe one of us should use our annual veto to stop this from happening.
yeah, Josh, go ahead.
I'm going to stop this from happening.
All right, hey, that's I respect it. I respect it. I'm not going to push back. But you just wasted your veto on the first episode of the year. So I mean, and I will
All right,
probably use my. I'll probably use my veto in like vengeance. With vengeance in my heart. So just be aware.
Okay. You can waste it then.
Okay, Veto Atreides.
Ooh,
Yeah.
veto for vendetta.
Mine was better than what you said.
Yeah,
but
it was.
that's
It
all
was.
right. Well, although actually, I mean, yours is vendetta is like vengeance. Right?
Yeah.
So I don't know. They're both good.
They're both okay.
They're both great. By the way.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the first two chapters of The Hobbit.
Let's jump into our
we go.
Hobbit hole.
You getting ornery over there,
A
bud?
little bit.
Chapter 1. In a hole in the ground, there lived a hobbit. It's the opening line. Very, very famous opening line right there.
Oh, and
My text.
actually, sorry. You're calling it the Hobbit, and I'm okay with that. But there is another title that you could use instead. So from now
there and
on,
back again.
so from now on, I'm not going to be calling it the Hobbit. I think that's a dumb name. So I'm going to be calling it There and Back Again. Just so you're not confused. I'm not going to refer to it as the Hobbit. I think that's dumb. That's a character in the book. That's not the name of the book.
I think I will. Well, I mean, the Hobbit. That's
That's the character.
Is it a?
Yeah, he's called the Hobbit.
Well, it's not his name.
They call him the Hobbit.
All right. I mean,
Okay,
I do.
so let's-
it refers to Bilbo. Bilbo is the Hobbit, right? So,
Yes. So let's dive into the first chapter of There and Back Again.
Okay.
An
So we
unexpected
get
party.
we get a little bit into life around the hill, as they call it. Bilbo meets Gandalf and invites him for tea the following day, when a bunch of dwarves show up instead. And Gandalf's kind of bringing up the rear. He does show up in the end. And they explain their plans for adventure and how Bilbo fits into all of this. So that's our general summary. I have plenty of notes to talk about, and I think there's already... it's a pretty cool opening chapter, and we get a lot of information pretty quick.
Yeah. A lot of history.
So I don't know if there's a place where you'd like to start, but
actually there is a place I can start, and that's right before the chapter. I'm wondering if your copies have a forward section that's only a page in my book, where it's kind of explaining the language in the book a little bit.
Yeah, the runes, the runic symbols.
Yeah.
We don't read the glossaries. Or
Well,
the
no, well, glossary.
It's not a glossary, but it does have this note on the text, which yes, I did read.
Okay, just making sure.
I didn't read it.
There's a reason for why in this story, dwarves and dwarvish is spelled with a V instead of an F, like was apparently proper English back 100 years ago. But that reason is in The Lord of the Rings 3:415, which I think means The Return of the King, but I'm not certain. But I got a little footnote.
What's the last thing you said?
There's a little footnote in mine.
Yes,
and it's referring to in the story, dwarves and dwarvish are used with a V instead of an F.
Yes,
and the footnote says the reason for this use is given in The Lord of the Rings, Roman numeral 3, 415.
Oh, yes. Nope, I do see that.
So I assume that's page 415 of Return of the King, but I can't be certain right now.
Gotcha. I do see that too. Well, one thing I want to say in response to that, because I feel like your understanding is that this is put in here as like an update for modern readers, and like, hey, this is how the language has changed. But that's not what this is. No,
I don't think I was trying to say that. I think I was making sure you guys had the same part of the book.
It's censorship, plain and simple.
But
censorship.
No, this isn't like Reagan getting knocked out of Young Zaphod Plays It Safe. This is more of like, did you guys get that little bit of context before we started about how the language works? And I got a little into conlangs or constructed languages about a year and a half ago. And that's kind of what Dwarvish and Runes and Elvish are in this. Is usually held up as examples.
Is that what Conolingus is? Conoling?
No, that is not.
Okay.
Damn, you are one ornery mother effer, dude. You are off your rocker tonight.
So I found the language notes interesting, and they only take up a page, so it's not that much.
No, I mean it is interesting, but what I find most interesting about it is less about I mean it's remarkable what Tolkien accomplishes
right.
and how in depth his languages are. But I mean like this.
And I remember where I was going with that. I think what this page is meant to be is kind of a note to the publisher of like, hey, I didn't screw up the spelling. Stop trying to edit things from what I didn't write. I remember hearing that story somewhere some time ago, but I could be wrong. Could be misremembering.
I mean, maybe so. And I think there's a lot of information that you can find out there about all of this. So I guess another thing to mention is like, so much scholarly and academic work has been done specifically on The Lord of the Rings and even more specifically on Tolkien himself. Like, it's insane. That's not what Chapter Chumps is, just for the record.
Mm-hmm.
We're not fact-checking things. Like, this is basically just like three chumps just fucking having a discussion. So this is all largely our interpretations. But all that's to say, Josh, my interpretation of this here is actually that this is, and what I think what makes this like singular page so interesting, I think it's trying to insert the Hobbit, like this is a framing device where when you pick this story up, the Hobbit, or There and Back Again, Connor, I don't want you to get confused.
I didn't know what you meant by that.
Just what book are we talking about? It's saying that this is like a historical account.
Yep.
That this is something that occurred in like, mythic history. And so like it wasn't even written in English, right? It's like when people translated the Bible, it's like, it's something older than English the way we know it. And so like things are inevitably going to be adapted and some things will be changed or lost. But I feel like immediately, you know, Tolkien is kind of inviting you to believe that the story's real, I guess.
Yeah, suspend disbelief and it's the beginning of the world building.
Yes.
Although in my version, there's even more right before that is literal world building, which is we'll get to exactly what it is later, but it's the map that is mentioned in this chapter, I think. Mm-hmm. You have it too? Excellent. Good.
Yes.
I do too.
So you're holding it up. You're holding it correctly. I was holding it north up.
Dwarf side up. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that was another funny bit.
I didn't find it funny. I found it an interesting little like tidbit about their culture is that they see east, the direction presumably the sun rises from, as the top of the map. And we're so ingrained with north is up that anything else seems kind of silly to us. But that's just a cultural difference. There's no real meaning for it one way or the other. It's just a convention.
True enough, Josh.
So that's all I had before this chapter. Why don't we dive into the chapter itself?
Yeah. Connor, what did you think? It sounds like you pretty much got through most of this today on Tolkien's birthday. Pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't want to speak for you, but I mean, like, you haven't tried to read this before. I don't know what, like, your, if you had any, like, preconceived notions of what you were getting into and how that matched up with, like, these chapters that you found yourself reading. I'm curious how you felt going through this first chapter.
Yeah, you know, I was a little bit, like, hesitant, I guess, to start. You know, I had been preparing for starting this for some time, obviously, mentally. Because I mean, I was just hung up on it's such a fucking just a massive amount of work, especially if we keep on reading to The Lord of the Rings, which we haven't voted on yet. We're going to
but we will.
We're going to take a vote, and you know, I mean, I do have a veto, so we'll see. We'll see how
but I do too. So.
We'll see how you can veto my veto.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I mean, this is only 317 pages. I think Hitchhikers was about 800 all told, the whole franchise.
I mean, I think we're going to read these books faster in some ways, given the chapter chunks we're breaking them into. Like, we're not getting any two-page chapters here.
Right.
But anyways, I don't mean to interrupt you, Connor. Go on.
Yeah, so when I started reading, I mean, last night, even with me not feeling great, I don't know, it really sucked me in, and yeah, it felt like I was in the world, and I immediately, you know, it felt like it was fun and quaint and like didn't take itself super seriously, but made me, you know, want to learn more about the world and the people. And I mean, right away, like Bilbo and Gandalf are great together. So yeah, I was happily surprised.
Yeah. Gandalf's a bit of a pedantic fuck, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, Gandalf is he definitely has some cosmic elf vibes, right?
Yes, cosmic imp.
A bit of cosmic imp. Thank you. I guess I'm just thinking Lord of the Rings. Sorry, guys. Cosmic imp.
He like absolutely does.
Reference there for you. Yeah. So I think he kind of delights in like just being a bit of a pedantic fuck, as Josh put it, which I think is a good description of him.
But to his credit, Bilbo just kind of ran with it when Gandalf's like, "Do you mean it's a good morning, as in like everything is good today, or like it is a morning where you wish it to be good, or something like that?" And Bilbo's just kind of like, "Yeah, all of that."
Right. Yeah, Bilbo's pretty awesome. That's the one thing that I really latched onto in this first chapter was just like, I was worried that I wouldn't like Bilbo, because I kind of know, or I kind of get the portrayal of hobbits in the movies, and I know I'm the one who said, I'm not really going to get into this, but, you know, it's like they're charming and they're quaint, you know, but I didn't really know what it would be like to have, like, a hobbit, I don't know, to be following a character like Bilbo, essentially. But I was like really, really enamored with just how reluctant he is to get pulled into this adventure, but at the same time, like, he's also kind of fighting this other part of his nature. I think it's like a really interesting wrinkle, because I think it would be easy to make Bilbo just be a coward who just wants to, like, you know, fuck around all day and blow smoke rings or whatever. But, like, there really is a part of him that feels like he wants more, you know, and he's hesitant to grab it. And I don't know, I feel like that's something a lot of people can relate to. I mean, myself included. Like, I think usually, like, my day-to-day life is pretty fucking boring. And it always feels like there's just, like, maybe something, like, just on the periphery of your vision, you know, if you only turn your head. But that's, like, the scary part. And this is a story of someone who goes for that. And I think that's really cool. I think Bilbo's a really great point of view character. And this was a really cool opening for him.
Outside your window, but you just never know.
Famous. That song's about the Hobbit.
Yeah.
So,
and also, I mean, parallels to Arthur much?
Yes.
From The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
Yes.
And I mean, the same guy played the guy in the movie.
They really got the perfect guy.
They got the perfect guy.
It's like sometimes you get typecast, but it's kind of just like, yeah, but like that's what you're best at, you know?
Exactly, yeah. That's his thing. He is that character. He is the reluctant, you know, shy but lovable kind of, you know, straight man who gets pulled into an extraordinary situation and learns about himself, you know, along the way.
Yeah, and there are some specific instances where I think he acts so much like Arthur, where I think I took a couple notes of that. I think Josh is smiling because maybe he did too. I don't know.
I tried to take notes. I completely failed yesterday. It was just, I was so out of it yesterday when I was reading that I fell asleep multiple times. Most of which were during the third chapter, which I found out when we talked that I wasn't supposed to read anyway. So.
Oh, yeah. And now we're going to skip that one because it's boring and nothing happens.
No, it doesn't work that way. Sorry, buddy.
I got a veto.
Yeah.
So.
But yeah, no, when we were speaking yesterday about our plans, you mentioned that you had some notes about comparing the two books we've read so far, this part of The Hobbit and The Hitchhiker's Guide, and I was 90% sure you were going to mention that Bilbo feels a lot like Arthur Dent.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he absolutely does. In the best way, because Arthur was great too.
Yeah.
And he really, really grew into, just a more it was so cool to see his journey of like, I guess like literally finding his way in the universe, you know, in the end. We'll see how this goes for Bilbo. There's kind of like part of the opening line where it's like, oh, well, whether or not Bilbo figures anything out, like, I guess that's up for you to decide. Or like Tolkien kind of writes something a little cheeky where it's like, he's going to go on an adventure and it's like, Ben, and what does he get from that? It's like, I don't know. What do you think? You got to read it to find out. So yeah. I liked what Connor was saying about Bilbo and Gandalf specifically because they're a great pair. Obviously, Gandalf is just such a larger-than-life character. Like, it's just, I don't know. I just love Gandalf.
More like a larger-than-Hobbit character.
Talking about character, I mean, like, Sir Ian McKellen, who plays him in the movie, I can't... I kind of wish that there was, like, more descriptions of these characters in a way other than, like, what cloaks they're wearing, so I could kind of piece my own mental picture together a bit better. But until that happens, it's like, well, Gandalf is Ian McKellen. That's it. And yeah, their back and forth is pretty funny. I do think that Gandalf seems a little bit, I don't want to say less wise, but he is a little goofier than I guess I was expecting initially. But I've also always heard that The Hobbit is a bit more of like a children's fantasy story as opposed to The Lord of the Rings, which kind of make an effort to be a bit more serious in tone.
But I'm gonna.
This might be a dumb
question. This might be a dumb question.
Yeah.
Is The Hobbit really? was it written first? Actually,
it was.
It was.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was the Lord of the Rings planned? What, like, were they being written concurrently or anything?
No. So, all good questions, and actually, my copy is the 70th anniversary edition of The Hobbit, and there's a foreword written by Christopher Tolkien, one of his sons, where he talks about the stories that his father would tell about how he first came up with the idea of The Hobbit, the process of getting it published, and what that was like. And so The Hobbit was published in 1937. It's 86 years old. And Tolkien was, that means that he was, let's see, 45 years old at the time of it being published. And The Lord of the Rings, if I'm not mistaken, which I could be, I'm pretty sure weren't published until about 1951. Because essentially what happens is he had the idea for The Hobbit while he was grading papers, so he says. He was a teacher. Wrote down a little sentence on like a piece of paper, never forgot about it, but didn't even start writing anything right away. Like it's a process that takes years and years and years. And so essentially, after he goes through the process of publishing it, which is it's almost an ongoing story he would tell his children, he actually crafts it into a written work, sends it off to be published, goes through that process, and then The Hobbit is a huge hit. Publishers immediately are like, we need a sequel to The Hobbit. Like, where is There and Back Again 2000? You know, like, you know. So essentially, Tolkien is like, okay, yeah, I want to do that, but I have a lot to think about. Like, he was deep in his own lore. And I'm pretty sure The Fellowship of the Ring is published in 1951, 14 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
Long time.
Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm right based off. I could look it up immediately and just know from the internet, but anyways, I'm not gonna do that because it's my fucking podcast.
We don't fact check on this podcast.
We already said that. I don't give a shit.
We say whatever the fuck we want. We're like Joe Rogan. I mean JRR Tolkien.
JRR Rogan.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. No. In fact, another thing that I learned is that there are small bits of The Hobbit, and maybe I'll mention this more, but particularly one chapter in particular that was changed after The Lord of the Rings was published in order to more closely tie this story with The Lord of the Rings. And those changes are almost definitely in all the versions that we're reading. So,
what's the copy date online?
So yeah, so there you go. But yeah,
nice.
it's really fascinating. It's I don't know. There's just so much to it. It's crazy how in depth the lore of the universe is, and like how in depth the lore of like the creation of it is at the same time as well.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There's a lot to it.
Looks like my copy is from at least 97.
Yeah. Well, don't worry. I don't think we have anything to worry about. We should all be reading essentially the same version of The Hobbit.
Right. I'll make sure you guys have the same pictures that my book has, though.
I guess I'm just going to jump around just a handful of things here in the first chapter, and then we'll move on to our second one. I don't even know how long we've been talking at this point.
Almost an hour.
I thought it was interesting that it says on page 1, it says the Baggins are mostly rich. And I was like, Frodo's a Nepo baby?
Pulling it all together.
Interesting. So your chapter 1 starts on page 1?
I'm not sure that it does, actually. I don't know.
Mine starts on page 9.
Mine starts on page 3.
Mine starts on page 3, yes. Page 1 is the runic stuff that you were talking about for me, Josh. Page 3 is an unexpected party, just like Connor's saying.
So the first numbered page is page 10, and that's the second page of chapter 1. And let's see, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. So page 1 for me is literally just The Hobbit. Just like the title page. There's one leaf of paper between that and the cover. And then there's the real title page that's got like
that
the
says there or
text
there and back again.
Or there and back again, yes. And it's got one of the drawings on it. And then we got the copyright page, the table of contents, the map, which takes up 2 pages, then the runic stuff, then chapter 1 on page 9. So we're going to have trouble with our page numbers, I think, down the road.
That's okay. I mean, I'll, I guess, mention my pages because that's just how I take my notes, but it probably won't relate to your copy then, Josh.
Okay.
On that note, we were talking about like similarities between Hitchhikers and the Hobbit and Arthur and Bilbo. On page 11 of my copy, this is once the dwarves start coming in. There's this line. It says, "This was the most awkward Wednesday he could ever remember." And I just thought that was like the perfect Thursday equivalence in the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yep. Definitely.
Hang of Thursdays.
So that got a chuckle out of me. The dwarves themselves coming in was funny. I mean, like, they're all kind of like... you get that, like, juxtaposition, right? Like, Bilbo's like excuse me, sir, blah, 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 where's my manners? And they're all just, like, busting in and demanding food and getting drunk, like, immediately and not even, like, really saying why they're there.
It was like us at Josh's house for New Year's Eve.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. We are Biffer and Bofer.
No, you were invited.
Yeah, right. I just acted like a dwarf once I was there. And then, that's right. Actually, there's one more Hitchhiker's note I have to mention since we're on the topic. For me, this was page 18, and Bilbo's talking about his family ancestry.
Yeah.
And so there's this little non sequitur here. It says, "If you have ever seen a dragon in a pinch, you will realize that this was a poetical exaggeration applied to any hobbit, even to Old Took's great-granduncle, Bullroarer, who was so huge for a hobbit that he could ride a horse. He charged the ranks of the goblins of Mount Graham in the Battle of the Green Fields and knocked their king, Gulfimble's head clean off with a wooden club. It sailed 100 yards through the air and went down a rabbit hole, and in this way, the battle was won and the game of golf invented at the same moment." And I was like, that literally could have been written by Douglas Adams. I can't believe it.
Yeah, 100%.
Absolutely. The only real note that I flagged, at least, was actually on my page 10, probably your page 2. What was the part? It was something about the way that the story started. This is the story of how Baggins had an adventure and found himself doing things that were altogether unexpected. He may have lost the neighbor's respect, but he gained... Well, you'll see whether he gained anything in the end. That part actually reminded me a bit of Adams' writing, where he would just kind of blurt out what's going to happen. Like when they were about to get hit by the missiles, and he goes, "Well, just make sure no one's too stressed. No one's going to get hurt, but somebody's going to sprain an arm, and to keep the air mystery, we're not going to tell you who sprained their arm."
Yeah.
It's not quite the same level with Tolkien here, but when I was starting reading yesterday, that was what jumped out at me immediately, and enough to be like, I'll put a note there, and then I never bothered to put a note anywhere else since.
No, I like that you brought that up because... You know, when I was mentioning how I feel like the book reads a lot smoother than I was expecting, I think a large part of that is Tolkien's narration, because it feels very, like, warm and personal, and like he's guiding you through the story. Like, he himself is the narrator, you know? And it does feel a lot like Adams. So, like, immediately I'm like, is this just like a British thing, you know? But... It's kind of like when we were talking about the Manny Picnic Dream Girl, and it's like, where does that begin? Where does that start? How did it happen? You know, at the same time, it's like, well, I have a hard time believing necessarily, for as much as Tolkien offered to the world of literature. Like, I have a hard time believing that he also single-handedly just created the style of writing. There probably was a trend of like narration like this that he's just one in a line of. But I think Adams kind of carries the torch for that. It's something that I guess maybe this makes me feel like I appreciate it a bit more in retrospect. You don't know what you got till it's gone, you know?
Yeah.
True that.
But yeah, I don't know. I didn't feel like this was... it didn't feel like a 1937 book to me, is all I'm saying. Because I feel like there's moments like that, or moments like the golf thing, or even in chapter 2, I think I have a note or two I wanted to point out that I just feel like it makes the writing feel a bit more, like, not even necessarily modern, but like just smoother. I think it's even something like, it kind of makes me think of like when I was a kid and I read a few of the Lemony Snicket Series of Unfortunate Events books. You know, it's like something about having the narrator kind of guide you through the story and kind of give you these pieces, you know, a little bit outside of the perspective of the characters. I guess it's like a bit of that fourth wall breaking that I guess it does make it feel a little modern, because that's so popular now as well. But I think he does it like really subtly and to great effect. That was definitely one of my big takeaways from this first
especially
chapter.
when there's like a freeze frame when all the dwarves are fucking shit up at the Hobbit's house. And
Right.
there's a freeze frame, and he's like, I bet you're wondering how I got into this mess.
Yes, yeah.
You know, that's how it begins. So
That was a really great... That one really surprised me. But I mean, what can you say, you know?
no, I mean,
He's one of the
I
greats.
do agree with you, and I think it makes for a very easy, breezy couple of chapters. It's very readable.
There's there's still more yet I can mention here. I'm not going to, because I'd like to get to the second chapter, but just things I want to throw out there that I thought were interesting. Thorin's... When they're going over the plans for, going on the adventure and getting all the treasure back from Smaug, the dragon, essentially Thorin, who's like the king leader of the dwarves, he's like, how do you, Gandalf, have my father's map? And Thorin's father...
Are you saying Thorn or Thorin?
Thorin.
Okay.
So in the present of the story, right? Thorin's father.
Those are two different guys, right?
Yeah, Thror is his grandfather.
Yes.
And Thorin's father had Thror's map, his father's. Which I know it's gonna sound, but none of that shit really matters.
All of
The
these
point
names,
is,
all of the names mean nothing to me. They're all just fucking dwarves.
That's fine, because none of the dwarves really have much character to them. They're almost like the dwarves from fucking Snow White, and they just have like silly names and their one character trait, and it's like, that's what I do. I'm the guy who makes the fires. That's just me. I'm that dwarf. I don't know if anything's gonna change there. It doesn't matter. Anyways. Gandalf says that his father gave him the map 100 years ago. So it just seems like dwarves are very long-lived. Is really what I got from that.
Yeah, a lot of characters in Lord of the Rings are long-lived.
Right.
Very long-lived.
So, I mean, not only is there like an interesting history to the whole thing with the map, because his father was like trapped by the necromancer, and then Thorin's like, what? Blah, blah, we should maybe do something. It's like, no, we're not going to go fight the fucking necromancer right now, buddy. We got a plan. But just who is the necromancer? Like, what is this going to matter? I don't know.
I don't know.
But it's just one of those things, like, I understand, or one of the things I was expecting coming in The Lord of the Rings is just a ton of lore, and it's like, even just the acquisition of this map, it's like, oh yes, your father's father, who blah blah blah, and did this, and then your father lost his mind going to battle the necromancer, and they gave me the map a century ago, and it's like, dude, you're just writing about how you got the map. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yep.
like there's like a little story for everything. Truly, last thing that I want to say, and then I'll open the floor back up. I don't mean to take it all up, but
No, that's fine.
I guess so. We were talking about it's Tolkien's 131st birthday today, and The Hobbit was published in 1937, making it 86 years old. And so, at the time of the publishing, Tolkien himself was 45. And so there's two things there. One, Tolkien makes a note of the fact that Bilbo is roughly middle-aged, he calls him.
Yep. He says he's in his 50s, right?
Yeah, yes, that's the note that I have down, but I don't know if he says exactly. But yeah, yes. And so one, I kind of took it as like Bilbo as a bit of a self-insert character for Tolkien. And the adventure that Tolkien, of course, is going on is essentially changing the entire trajectory of his life forever, and he doesn't realize how much at the time. But, of course, he comes to, and so, like, to essentially go, like, your entire life, like, I can't even imagine being 45, even though that's not that far away.
For you.
Amazingly, not that far. I'm not that close either, but it's not that far. But essentially, Tolkien lived like his entire life and had a career as an educator. Writing was just something that he did on the side, and he just like happened to be friends with like C.S. Lewis and all this other crazy shit. But like, it's just something that he just like did, And the fact that it was able to become what it did at this stage in his life, I guess I just find it like really inspiring. It's not like your life is over at any point, And I think this is a really great example of showing that to be true. Like there's never any point where it's like you can't make art anymore, or where your art doesn't have value or doesn't matter. And I think Bilbo is like a bit of Tolkien in the story, and also that the story of Tolkien making Lord of the Rings is like the story of that, of art being for everyone and for anyone and made by anyone as well. So it's just really cool that he was able to do that the way that he did, and I find that to be like really, really inspiring to read about.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I couldn't agree more. That's what it's all about. And it pays off to have famous friends too.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't think Tolkien was really ever just like some guy necessarily, but like he wasn't a writer, not to the scale that he became. Oh no, at that point. So
no, it's very, very cool, and yeah. I think you should be able to be creatively ambitious at any age.
Yes.
It's always possible.
Absolutely. Is there anything else we want to mention about Chapter 1? I feel like we've talked about a lot of things, and there definitely is still more we could say, but how do you two feel?
I don't know. I enjoyed the story a lot. There's a lot of details that come in right away, and like you were saying, it's... You can be creative at any stage in your life, and I think I've hit that kind of stride recently myself. And I was reading the first chapter, like, holy shit, he's getting through so much in like the first chapter, and it's just trying to compare what I've been attempting to this is going to be difficult, because that's not something I should do at this stage.
No.
But you still try to learn from it, and it's impressive how much he gets through it. I mean, he introduces Bag End, he introduces Bilbo and who he is, as well as Gandalf, and then he just throws in 14 more dwarves, one of who is apparently the rightful king of this lonely mountain, and they're going off to. We get the whole thing with the map, and they're off to to recover their lost gold and kingdom from this marauding dragon. And also, Bilbo, you're coming along because Gandalf says you're a good burglar.
Yes.
And Bilbo's
What's more,
excuse me.
the most impressive thing about that is, he does. That's a lot coming at you right away.
And he does a song.
Yeah.
He writes a whole song.
Yeah. But he does it so well. So many writers just, they do the info dump thing, and you're like, oh God, I'm just bogged down by all the who's who and what's what and where are we. But yeah, I mean, he does it so organically.
Yeah. Not only that, I don't know about your copies, but my copy has illustrations.
Yes.
And he drew all those, and they're really good.
I have an illustration of the hill and Hobbitown across the water.
Yeah.
That's my first one after the map.
Yeah.
And then my next illustration is...
the Trolls and the Fire?
Yes, the Trolls and the Fire. And that's a very different style. So...
It is, but it's my understanding that he also did all the art.
Which...
those aren't other people.
Yeah,
that's what he did.
Oh, that's I'd call like a wood carving, whereas the Hobbitown one is more of a watercolor. So yeah, two different styles in a well-written book. That's very impressive.
Yeah. I guess I just wanted to mention, Josh, I like what you were saying about like all the things that that Tolkien accomplishes in the first chapter, and you're right to do so. But I think one of the things that allows him to pull this trick as skillfully as he does is, it kind of makes me think about the way that George Lucas talks about Star Wars, and he's like, well, it's for kids. It's always been meant for kids. But like The Hobbit was kind of made to be like a modern day children's fairy tale, and not to say that like makes it necessarily any less worthwhile than the higher forms of literature, but like I think that like what I mean by that, and I think Tolkien like very obviously knew how to work within that medium, and it's like he doesn't introduce 13 dwarves and each one is like immediately like a well-rounded and intriguing character. Like they're all fucking caricatures. They're not really people at all. They're little storybook dwarves, and they all have their one little thing. Like,
and it's usually just the color of the hood.
Yes. So it's like I completely agree with you. But I think it's interesting because I think he's able to do so much in a way because like he understands the tone of the story that he's telling so well. And he doesn't take it so seriously where you're like, who are all these fucking guys coming over for dinner? It's, you're just like, yeah, it's the dwarves. Like, cool.
The only one you really got to pay attention to is Thorin.
Right. So. Exactly. Yeah. Any other like, more grounded story would be like, what, 14 characters back to back? What are you doing? But like, here it's just like, it's part of the whimsy of it.
Exactly.
Which is cool, I really dig it.
Yeah. So,
okay.
Chapter 2?
Chapter 2. So chapter 2, so after they go through the plan, Bilbo's like, all right, we should all go to sleep, whatever. The next day, Bilbo wakes up alone in his hobbit hole. He's relieved that it seems to him he's been left behind from all the adventuring, but Gandalf returns and he's like, hey, we left you a note, dude. Like, what are you doing? So
yeah,
Bilbo scrambles to make it on time to the inn where the dwarves are waiting, and they set off on their adventure for real. And then early on, during a rainstorm, they look for shelter. They see like a nearby fire. They can't make their own fire, and they see someone else's. They're like, okay, let's go there. But the fire's being tended by trolls, who capture the dwarves, and they're ultimately rescued by Gandalf's clever wizardry or trickery. And then they gather their spoils and continue on.
Yeah, pretty straightforward chapter. But it covers literally months of adventure.
Yes, yeah.
So, yeah, Bilbo just it's cleaning up his Hobbit hole after the party, the dinner the night before, and I think Gandalf points out they left a note under the clock because they expected him to dust under the clock like first thing, and Bill was like, "What made you assume that? I've been so busy with all the dishes." And yeah, he basically runs off. He complains about not having his handkerchief, and then I think Tolkien mentions that Gandalf comes by with like 1,000 pocket handkerchiefs after that.
Yeah.
Then they lose a horse in a river when they're trying to ford a river, or a pony rather, and all the food supplies on it, and that's why they were really like going for that fire. Is because like, well, if they have food, we could use some.
That's right. That's true. They're desperate.
And he mentions Bilbo kind of enjoys it at first.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's after the rain really starts, and I think it's end of May, getting on towards June. That's when he really starts to sour on it. And I think he mentions he's like grumbling in the back of the line, and the dwarves are just kind of ignoring him at this point because he's just complaining the whole time. And then the bit with the trolls was fun. It's not my favorite part, honestly. I don't know why. I get it's a good little scene, and I like how the trolls are ultimately defeated. But something about it, like the dwarves seem really incompetent in this chapter. They just kind of bumble into they go looking for Bilbo because Bilbo doesn't know how to signal them like they told him to.
That was really funny, yeah.
And they just kind of bumble into the clearing one by one and get snatched up by the trolls, who, through their language in the book, are not the brightest in the world.
Right.
And then it's proven further when Gandalf shows up to rescue them, and it's just the dwarves are like in sacks with their legs poking out, wiggling around like a comical cartoon. And Gandalf's just like, every time the trolls are about to decide what to do, how to eat the dwarves, he just kind of fakes one of their voices to start the argument up again until the sun comes up and turns them back to stone.
Yeah.
So it was straightforward. I don't know why I don't like the trolls themselves that much, but I like how they get defeated, I think is what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. Especially with the dwarves. Like, he mentions Bifur and Bofur put up a fight, but he doesn't write about it, so you don't get any, like... description or understanding of that. And then I think that might be because then when Thorin comes in, they kind of talk about him fighting back. He hits one of them in the eye.
And the another in the teeth.
Right. So kind of like you're saying, the only dwarf you really need to pay attention to is like Thorin, and all the other ones are like, whatever. So they give Thorin something to do here, but then he gets captured anyways, so...
Yeah.
Yeah. But he's the best one.
I almost said a big spoiler, but I remembered Connor hasn't read all the way. Not much else to say. There's not much else that I have to say about the chapter, quite honestly. Nothing really stood out, and honestly, this is the part where I started falling asleep a bit more.
Yeah.
Because I was just so dead tired yesterday. Oops.
What did you make of this chapter, Connor? You have any thoughts you want to share?
Yeah, I mean, I liked it. I liked that that Bilbo couldn't get away. He was sucked into the adventure, and he's still kind of going back. And I mean, one of the things that we didn't really mention is Bilbo's like ancestry, I guess, right? And like why why he's being selected to join this journey by Gandalf. And it's because on was it his mom's or dad's side?
His mom's, I think, the Took side.
The Took side. Yeah. They're kind of adventurous, and one of them was a great buddy of Gandalf, or multiple of them. I don't know. Gandalf is very old, but so he's kind of like fighting himself. He's kind of at war inside his head between the Took side and the Baggins side, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. And so he just keeps on swinging back and forth, like the entire time, he's like, oh, I should have stayed home. Then he's like, oh, well, I could do that, do this. And he tries his hand at burgling. And, obviously it doesn't really, it goes really wrong, obviously, with the trolls.
Yeah.
But I really like that aspect of, he's not suddenly this adventurer. He's still kind of going back and forth in his head. And, I kind of like reading that in real time. And I love how Gandalf comes back and manipulates the trolls in the end. I think that was a great thrill for me.
Yep. Did Gandalf explain where he went when they were on the ponies in the chapter?
Yeah, he says that he goes on ahead because he was like scouting the road, and he's also worried that they didn't have enough supplies, so he talks to Elrond. And
a couple of elf friends who work for Elrond.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, right, not Elrond himself. Right, a couple of elf friends, some elf buddies. He goes looking for some elf help.
Did they have any elf help books?
He needs some help with this shelf.
Yeah.
He's trying to build.
So, no, they do mention that. To what Connor was saying about how he likes that, like, Bilbo tries his hand at burglary. He's like, well, this is what they want me to do, so let's give it a shot. Like, I'm here. I really actually thought this was going to be like an early opportunity for him to prove, like, hey, you brought me here, and I'm not just some loser, and I'm going to be the one to help you guys out, and you're going to see that I have my own, like, unique skills to offer. And then he completely fucks up, and everyone's like, what the fuck, man? You just had to hoot. Like, that's all you had to do. You can't, he literally cannot hoot. Doesn't even know how.
He did try to tell him he didn't know, but they just kind of shooed him away to get started before he could tell them.
He's not a hooter.
Yeah, no hooter. I feel like that's another great, like, Arthur, overly bumbling, polite British mannerism. Like, he can't even say that he can't do what they're asking him to do, Like, all he has to do is say he can't hoot, but he just does not have, like, the ability to do that.
To interrupt and correct somebody.
Exactly. Right, exactly. It's strictly about not wanting to interrupt. Yeah, like, so it was really funny. Like, there was some great comedic timing in that chapter.
Definitely.
But and then I thought about it, I was like, yeah, of course he's not going to do it. Like, this is the second chapter. Like, why would now be the time? It's like, if he proves himself now, how does that factor into the structure of the story? Like, it doesn't destroy anything, but I was like, yeah, why did I think that this was going to, like, go well for him? Like, he's been out of the house for, like, fucking not long, this is his first go of it. But yeah, I also like how Gandalf comes back. It's cool that he tricks them. I was kind of thinking, like, they keep saying that the voices sound just like the other trolls. So
yeah.
I don't know if this is a dumb question, but, like, is Gandalf just a really good impersonator, or is this magic?
Could be a bit of both.
Yeah.
I like to think I would like to think it's a bit of both, actually. Because the trolls have, you can tell by the way they're written, they have very simple language skills, and you know what it actually reminds me of is Obi-Wan impersonating the Krayt Dragon in A New Hope.
Yeah, that's a really great.
The old man comes and scares away the antagonist of the scene using audio tricks. But in A New Hope, Obi-Wan is basically, he's using some of the Force to, like, amplify the sound, but most of the sound is just him making it naturally. So I want to say that's probably what Gandalf's doing, is he's probably making some of the noise, or some of the sounds, and using just a little bit of magic to make it sound like it's coming from this one troll, or just change the tone just a little bit more to make it a little more realistic. So I think
I like that.
I think he's doing it himself, but using magic to throw his voice a bit more.
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah, and then after the trolls are turned to stone, they're like, well, they must have a cave, because otherwise they would just get turned to stone always.
Yep. Oh, yeah,
and then
that part of the...
I thought it was kind of funny because, they look through all their shit, they find that there's gold, and then they're like, oh, we gotta, like, bury this in case we ever come back here and get the gold. And my first impression was like, I don't know if they're ever gonna write about them coming back here. Like, it doesn't seem like it. I'm like, this is exactly how a Dungeons and Dragons party behaves, down to a T. Like, they go into the cave, they find the barrels. The DM is like, don't worry about that shit. They're like, no. We're gonna take these. We are gonna roll them out of the cave. We're gonna find a place we are going to literally take the time to dig a massive hole and bury them, and we'll come back for it. It doesn't matter if we can't carry it. We'll come back for it.
You're mostly right there. That scene is very much a like, oh yeah, let's just get loot from at the end of the session or at the end of the encounter. But most parties would just take the coins and not care about how they're being carried.
I guess I was kind of imagining, like, for some reason you couldn't or whatever, and you just couldn't take the barrel. Like, no,
encumbrance is a real thing in D&D. That if the DM was a pedantic asshole like Gandalf, they would absolutely make them do something like that. It's like, guys, there's like 50 pounds of gold here. You got to carry that instead of food.
Right, exactly.
But to your original point of they're probably not going to write about their return journey, I want to point out the title.
Oh, there and back again. Yeah.
Told you.
Connor really should have been the one to mention that. I mean,
I've been telling you all along.
Yeah, it's just fun. I mean, like, they go through, they get the sword. Like, Gandalf shows up. He's like, this sword is, like, nice. Gandalf takes a sword. Thorin takes a sword.
Oop, crap. I want to write a note, but my pen's in the other room.
Yeah, so those...
I'll be right back.
Those things are all funny. I don't know. And then, like Josh was kind of mentioning, the whole thing about Gandalf explaining, he's like, hey, this is where I was. This is what I did. And then when he hears about the trolls, he says, immediately I had a feeling that I was wanted back. Looking behind, I saw a fire in the distance and made for it. So now you know. Please be more careful next time, or we shall never get there. Thank you, said Thorin.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Where's that scene?
All right. Let's see. Oh, I think there's just I just want to mention something about Tolkien's narration here. Did you want to say something first, Josh?
I just wanted to say I got a bit of the impression that Thorin was a little frustrated with Gandalf. Because he says, "Could you be more plain?" when he tries to get that explanation of where Gandalf was. I don't know. I think I have movie Thorin kind of his grumpiness in my head. So
no, I get that though, because I do think he's a little frustrated. I mean, like, he's already very skeptical of Bilbo, and the only reason he's there is because of Gandalf. So I think some of that gets put on Gandalf, and Gandalf already does have a habit of this with Thorin, because Thorin originally asks how he got the map in the first chapter, and Gandalf just says, "Oh, your father gave it to me." And then they think about it.
To it yet.
Yeah, Thorin's like, "Well, this doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, obviously, there's more to explain here."
My dad's been dead for 100 years or something. Yeah, like that.
So I think, I mean, I don't know. I think that's a fair reading of it, Josh. I was just going to mention just a couple quick instances of Tolkien's narration that I liked in Chapter 2. He says, you wouldn't notice the cavalcade of dwarves if you were 2 feet away. And then he kind of even goes into, like, even though, like, they're pretty quiet, like hobbits, like even a weasel wouldn't run away or something.
Yeah. Really.
But then there's this part where the trolls are talking, and then he has a line. He says something like, "Yes, I'm afraid trolls really do act like that," and something like, I didn't actually put all my page numbers down, so I'm not sure where to find this. But there was one more line where it was something like the dwarves would have really been mad that Bilbo didn't tip them off if they had known that the trolls were quite likely to try toasted dwarf or even pony, something like that, or roasted dwarf or even pony.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like those are like those little bits where like on the face of it, it's not necessarily funny, but like reading through the book, like it's a lot more, almost like casual and lighthearted than
almost
I
like
was
conversation.
expecting.
Like a conversational British man talking to children.
Well, yes, and I think that's exactly it, because, as I have heard, and a little bit of what the foreword was about from his son, Christopher Tolkien, like a lot of what The Hobbit was before he actually wrote it down, was stories that their father, Tolkien, would tell them. And so, like, sure enough, like, I think that feeling really does get captured in the writing and translated to the reader. And that's really cool, especially considering, the difference of time from when it was written and all the many variances of audiences that book has had over, it's more than a century or no, sorry, that's Tolkien's age. Almost a century, 86 years runtime. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, that's definitely one of the biggest things that stuck out to me. I had heard a lot, I feel like over the years about how these books might be a slog to get through, and I don't know if The Lord of the Rings is going to be any different, or like, you're going to be reading descriptions of a field that are like 3 pages long, or like, every 10 pages you're reading another song or so. And I was like, I was kind of waiting for this to be something to trudge through, but so far, I'm pleased to say I think it's been pretty breezy, and that's been like a fun surprise for me.
Yeah, I think I had a similar feeling when I first read the book. My impression of The Hobbit is that it is not that kind of story. It will get into details, but it keeps moving, I think, and I hope we see that like every couple chapters we read. As for Lord of the Rings, oh man, the first few chapters of The Fellowship were so hard to get through. Like I said, it was like I did not have the motivation to keep going with that book, and that was, I think you guys were in the middle of Dune at the time. So, yeah. And Dune is a book that I considered for the longest time to be a slog to get through, because I first tried to read Dune in middle school when that stuff was just going way over my head. And trying to read in a middle school cafeteria is not conducive to reading that book. But when I read it last summer, 2 summers ago, geez, when did everything happen? I was running right through it because it clicked with me a lot more then. And I think as we grow up, it's these kind of detailed stories are easier to get into and easier to get lost in, because our imaginations are a bit more. Well, they may not be as active as when we were kids. I think they're a little bit more receptive to the words on the page and interpreting those into something that we can imagine and engage with. Mm-hmm. I think that's all I had to say about that. I felt like I had more for a moment, but it left.
Well, I think you had a good thought to share there, Josh. I'm with it for sure. And I mean, having read through Dune, I guess that makes me hopeful that we'll be ready for Lord of the Rings when we get to it. So
I hope so too.
If we get to it, I don't know if Connor's going to shoot us down or not, but
we'll see.
You can shoot me down in return.
I mean, Josh already used his 1 veto, so I don't know. It's just me. It's just me against him now.
So much time by doing that.
All right. I mean, any other thoughts on these first 2 chapters? Any thoughts on what we think might happen? I know for some of us, we're not going to be able to share predictions, but I mean, like, I guess anything else we want to mention before we wrap up here?
I think they'll have a short rest in the next chapter.
We will see.
I don't have much else to say about these 2 chapters. I think we covered them pretty well for our standards.
Yeah.
And our standards are pretty high.
Pretty high.
High for a Hobbit, maybe.
Yes.
Damn, dude.
Maybe up to about Gandalf's eyebrows.
That's pretty
How
good.
about that for an episode title?
Yeah.
High for a Hobbit?
High for a Hobbit. That's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay, cool. I thought you were going to say Gandalf's eyebrows, but that works too. Connor, any thoughts from you?
I really enjoyed it. I'm actually happy because I thought the same thing about Lord of the Rings as being dense and maybe harder to get through. So I am excited that maybe this is only 2 chapters in, so it could go wrong, but maybe The Hobbit eases me in, gets me sucked in and attached to the universe. Then The Lord of the Rings, like it's worth the commitment at that point.
Yeah, I hear the Two Towers is like the God Emperor of The Lord of the Rings. So,
I mean, I loved the God Emperor, so that would be awesome.
I'm sorry, Connor, do you have any thoughts before I derail us for a moment?
No, derail away. I'm happy with what we covered here.
I want to go back to the pros and cons just for a quick moment. I completely forgot about a con that happened this morning.
Well, no, we're calling it cons and pros now.
Whatever. So I got an Amazon gift card for Christmas, and I was just going through getting some things off Amazon I've been looking at for a while, replacing some things that Nova shredded. And I was so happy. I was like, I got 5 items in my shopping cart that added up to just under the amount of the gift card. It's like, awesome. I'm going to use like the whole gift card and not or like most of the gift card, and won't have anything on my credit card for all these things I've wanted. And I hit the order with the taxes. The order total shot up so that my credit card was charged 8 cents. And I just found that
con?
That's a con. I found it very frustrating. It's like I was so close to getting exactly what I needed, and it's like, nope, 8 cents over. Fuck you with taxes.
Well,
Though, pro to balance
close
it out,
but no cigar.
I then immediately spent a couple $100 getting a fucking exercise machine so I could hit one of my
New Year's resolutions?
resolutions. Thank you for the New Year. Yes.
All right.
That's
a pro.
That's a pro.
In a way.
Yes. Well, unless you're going from the bank account
Yes. Yeah.
standpoint, but that's why I'm derailing. It's like I saw an email pop up. I was just checking what it was real quick. It was like, oh, the exercise equipment shipped. Awesome. Oh right, there's two things on my credit card now because the fucking gift card stuff was 8 cents over.
Oh, hey.
8 cents.
It's all good in the end.
Amazon needs to take a penny, leave a penny function for shit like that.
Jeff Bezos ain't going to do that. He didn't become
Nope.
the second richest man on planet Earth by take a penny, leave a penny.
Nope. Is he still the second richest, or is Elon fallen under that at this point?
I don't know.
Elon has lost.
I really don't know.
I think Elon set a record for the most money lost by a billionaire.
Yeah, well, that's what happens when you're kind of a
We
fuckwad.
should we should have somebody set a record for most heads lost as a billionaire. If you know what I'm saying.
I mean,
If you know what I'm saying.
you just look at like all the kings beheaded in France, like over the last few hundred years.
Yeah.
The record is one. Everyone has one head to get. Every billionaire has one head.
It's coming back, baby.
2023. Guillotine 2000. Wait, wasn't that a AJJ song?
Yeah. It's something like that.
Like Super Guillotine
Super
or
Guillotine 3000 or something like that.
yeah, literally. Yeah, it was,
That's a really good song too. It's a good album.
yeah. Good stuff. All right. Well, hey, I mean that was Chapter Chumps. This is the first episode of
Connor.
Chapter Chumps 2000.
Connor, aren't you forgetting another announcement?
I kind of thought you were gonna. I thought you might do all that.
Well, It's kind of weird to have a big announcement about this on your first show of a podcast. But we do have a brand new Patreon. Patreon.com/ChapterChumps. You can be a citizen of Chump Nation for just $1. If you subscribe for $1, you get a full citizenship, and that includes a vote in our next Chump Nation election, and that election determines which books we read next. And we haven't actually discussed how the points work, but my thought is the listeners get, like, all together, all the listeners' votes combined, they get one vote. And then we get 3. Yeah.
I feel like that's not.
We'll work on that. We'll work on that.
I mean, that can't be a very strong incentive, though, because then, you know what?
Exactly.
We'll work on it. We'll work on it.
Crazy.
Sure.
If they get all the votes, we're just reading. We compared to 3 votes, 5 million patrons.
Connor, this is how the Electoral College was formed. This is the death of direct democracy. Is that what you want to do? Is that really what you want to do?
I want to be.
People are going to be chopping off your head next, buddy.
Okay, when you suggested that we let the Patreons vote on our next books, what I thought you meant was that they do the final vote. We're the ones who pick the books they vote from, though.
That's what we should do. That's what we should do.
I don't like that.
No, you know what? We don't need to. This is going to confuse the listeners.
Yes.
Listen, $1 gets you full Chump Nation citizenship,
which includes a vote.
All the amazing things that come with that. It includes a vote.
Yeah.
Who knows what your vote is worth? But just like in America, I mean, whatever. Like that's the world we live in. Who knows what your vote is actually worth?
You do get free healthcare in Chump Nation, though.
That's already a leg up.
Yeah. So it's worth your while. There's also a $3 membership tier where you enter the Chumpverse, which is a place wonderful and strange. And once you're fully immersed in the Chumpverse by paying $3, you get a little something of bonus content.
Yeah.
A little something. You'll find out when you subscribe. And then also you get access to our Discord server, which I just created.
Wow.
A lot of exciting things. It's
Patreon.com. We're making some really big moves here.
Hell yeah!
Can you link me to that?
Patreon.com/ChapterChumps. You got to pay the troll toll, buddy.
Yeah.
To get into the Hobbit hole. Anyways,
great.
If you want to get at us, follow us. We are on Twitter and Instagram at ChapterChumps. You can get us at chapterchumps@gmail.com if you use email, legacy social media, as they say. And as always,
I just can't see the faces I'm making.
As always, until next time.
Happy birthday, Tolkien.
Oh,
good morning,
bud.